Looking for your next quilting project? This is called a log cabin quilt block. It is beginner friendly. I love making this quilt block because there's no pressure to make points line up. And it's jelly roll friendly because you use all 2.5-inch strips. Here's what you will need to make one 12.5-inch log cabin square. For these fabrics, I'm working from the center outwards. So for the center, you will need one 2.5-inch square, and all of these are by 2.5 inches for the rectangles. Then a 2.5-inch square for the next fabric, and then 4.5-inch strip, 4.5 and 6.5, 6.5 and 8.5, 8.5 and 10.5, 10.5 and 12.5. Then we're just going to start placing these right sides together and sewing them with a 1/4-inch seam allowance as I show here. I had already placed those two 2.5-inch squares together, and then I'm grabbing my 4.5 by 2.5-inch strip and putting it on the right and sewing there. Then we will just keep adding these 2.5-inch strips around the center. So next I'm taking a 4.5 by 2.5-inch rectangle, placing it on the top and sewing right sides together there. I am also pressing my seams open in between adding each one. Here's my 6.5-inch strip, adding it there. Next is another 6.5-inch strip, and you will just repeat this process over and over on the bottom and the right, or the top and the left. As you add these, again, just press the seams open, line them up, and it is that easy. Another reason I love making these blocks is because you get to coordinate a lot of different fabrics in just one quilt block instead of it just being 2 fabrics. And if you wanted, you could go even larger and just keep adding 2.5-inch strips by adding 2 inches to each measurement. If you're an imperfect quilter like me, you'll want to trim it down at the end to make sure it's squared up nicely. And that's it. That's how you make a log cabin quilt block.